What's up, guys? This is Dax, and in today's video, I wanted to break down a really simple subject that I think a lot of tattoo artists always ask, and it's how to do straighter lines. How to do straight lines, how to do straighter lines, how to do crispy lines, how to do better lines, right? Okay, so I'm going to go through 9 of the most important things that I think you need to take into consideration when doing outlines. Alright, even though I don't do a whole lot of outlines and portraits because there's not a whole lot of outlines, this is still something that I had to learn a long time ago, alright? So, number 1, if you catch yourself doing a lot of shaky lines, there's a couple things you need to do, alright? The one thing to think about is the bigger the outline needle size, the easier it is to make straighter lines. So if you're using a 3-round liner, maybe it's time you try using a 7-round liner or a 9-round liner and get that down first. Because the smaller the needle, the easier it is to see little crooked jaggeds or just make shaky lines. Second thing I want you to take into consideration is, are you planting your hand, or is your hand just kind of there? Because you want to plant your hand and you want to move and rotate from that area. You don't want to constantly move like this or move like this. You want to plant your hand and do this or this, if that makes sense. Okay, so use bigger needles, plant your hand, keep your eye on the tip of the needle, not the barrel. Okay, that's one thing that took me a long time. I was always looking at the end of the barrel, not the tip of the needle. Look at the tip of the needle. It'll be more precise. You'll know exactly where the needle's going. Next thing is, you got to tighten or loosen the skin more, depending on what type of machine you're using, whether it's a coil or rotary, and also what body part. If, for example, if you're doing an outline on a ribs, and you're stretching it so tight that you don't realize that when you pull this line and you unstretch it, it's crooked, that's a problem. But also, if you don't have the skin stretched tight enough and you wipe away and it didn't really go in, that's a problem. So it's not always about stretching the skin, but then again, it's not always about letting the skin be loose. You got to find a healthy balance, and the type of machine you use has a lot to do with it too. For example, with coils, you want to stretch the skin more, but with rotaries, because there's no give, there's no spring, no bounce back, you want to hold the skin less tight to do lines, okay? And it always depends. Every machine specifics, it depends, but that's just general. So next tip would be, never start your outlines on the middle of an outline. So say you're doing a circle, right, or a half circle, and you pull a line and you get to right here. You're running out of ink. Now what? Now you get new ink, obviously, but you don't want to start right here and go down. You want to start down here at the starting of the line and go up and connect right there. And the reason why is because if you start right here, wherever you start, it needs to be a corner, because when you start, before you move, the needle goes in a few times, if not a ton of times, before you start to move. So if you start in the middle of an outline and that needle hits a bunch of times, now there's a little blob right there while you go. Whereas if you would have did it on a corner, that's kind of expected, and it just boldens that corner more, rather than in the middle of a line. There shouldn't be a dot, right? There shouldn't be a bold part where the needle hit a bunch of times before you move. So if you're going to stop in the middle of a line, make sure you connect it by starting at the start of a line as well, rather than the middle. Next thing is, always keep your needle wet. Always keep your noodle wet. Let's have some fun with that. Keep your noodle wet, which means keep ink on your needle, all right? I can't stress this enough. It's better to use more ink than less ink, because if you use less ink, you have to go over a line, and sometimes you can blow out a line by going over it a few times, or you end up just slightly offsetting the line and not hitting the line perfectly crisp. So always keep your needle wet, especially if you, like we were just talking, if you can't finish the entire line, dip back in the ink and go back for it. Next thing is, keep your needle in your hand at a 90-degree angle, at an angle like this. Not like this, not like this. Keep it at a 90-degree angle. That's going to help you. It's just going to help it go into the skin like it should. Next tip. This is the most important, all right? Breathe slowly and deeply. Where does anxiety come from? It comes from holding your breath and taking shallow breaths. So if you're doing outlines and they're not going like you want them to, chances are you're feeling a little anxious, you're feeling nervous, you're holding your breath, you're taking shallow breaths. Slow it down. Take some deep, invigorating breaths. It's going to relax you. It's going to calm you down. It's going to make you bring oxygen to your brain so you can think clearer and focus on your lines. Okay? Breathe slower and deeper. That's going to help improve your lines. It sounds crazy, but it is. Okay, next one. Pull your lines instead of pushing them. So rather than stretching the skin and pushing it this way, stretch the skin and pull it. Okay, pull rather than push. The needle should, if it's going like this, a push would be pushing it. A pull would be sticking it in and pulling it. When you pull them, it causes less trauma to the skin, and it's an easier movement for your hand to make, so it goes in smoother. There's different things like for example, imagine a magnet, okay? A magnet, how magnets get pulled to each other, okay? That's how your lines can be. Either you push them or you pull them. Pushing them, it's gonna be a lot harder to push a line and make a line. Pulling it, it kind of pulls itself when you get that feel for it. Next tip would be do more lines, okay? A lot of people that ask me, how can you do straight lines? Most of them are rookies and they haven't even done 100 lines, okay? Repetition is key. Practice makes perfect. If you haven't been doing a ton of lines, or if you can't do straight lines, do more lines, okay? I see an artist in my shop, Kira, she only does sacred geometry. Well, and sacred geometry is all the crazy lining works. The funny thing about that is she just happens to be the best outliner of our shop, okay? There's a key there. She does so much goddamn lines, she does so much lines that she's great at them. So don't ever forget that. If you want to do great lines, you need to do a lot of them, and you need to do a lot more than you think, okay? So I hope these 9 tips helped you out. Once again, this is Dax, and if you like this video, make sure you subscribe and tune into my YouTube channel. Every week we do videos. Also, if you have a question you want to ask me, my email address is below. AskDaxQuestions@gmail.com. Make sure you write maybe 4 sentences, a short paragraph that's straight to the point. If I like it, I'll answer it in a video. Also, share this video with somebody who can't do great lines, who maybe an apprentice in your shop, or maybe a wannabe apprentice, or maybe just an inspiring artist that wants to be a tattoo artist. Share the love, share the education. Also, check out The Savage Way, my new book. We've been getting great feedback. It doesn't go into outlines a lot, but it does go into black and gray realism. So if you want to if you want to step up your skills in black and gray realism and do that, get the book. It'll probably be the best investment you ever made. It's really cheap. Also, check out tattooingportraits.com. Subscribe to my newsletter on my website. You'll be notified of new products, new trainings, new free content, new YouTube videos, things like that. And stay tuned for next week, because we got great questions coming in every week. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you next week. Be great.